listening to The Art of Imperfect Adulting. I'm your host, Amy Stone. Here, I share stories from real people navigating the adventure that I call adulting. Are you ready? Me too. Let's do this. Hello, friends. My guest today is Tiphany Kane. Tiphany, are you ready for a fun chat today?
Yes, I am.
All right, I'm so happy you're here. Let's start with this easy question to get started. What part of the world do you call home?
Currently, I call home California.
Beautiful.
Sunny, beautiful Southern California. Yes.
You answered the next question right already. What's something you love about where you live?
I love that we've got ocean, desert, mountains, all within like a 2-hour drive of each other, almost no matter where you live in Southern California. So it's really cool. Like you can, whatever activity you want to do, it's in within reason. So that's a really fun part of living here.
It
Plus
really
the
is.
sunshine.
I mean, it is a special thing about California, honestly, that you have all of that stuff so close together. It's why everybody loves it so much. All right. Today, we're going to talk about something which is a decision that you made after being told that you were too passionate and what you did next. So I can't wait to have this conversation. Tiphany, when you were younger, like high school or college, what was the job or the career that you trained for?
I was raised super religious,
Okay.
very culty, patriotic, religious. So my job as a woman was wife and mother.
Really? Okay, I did not
Yes,
know this about your
yes,
backstory. All right, so
yes.
very interesting.
Going to college was ungodlike, right?
Okay.
So yeah, it was, I actually participated in skits and things of that sort where we admonished young people not to go to college and about how bad it was to go to college.
Really? Oh my
Believe it
goodness.
or not. Yep. Yep. That's what I was raised in.
I have spoken to several people on the show, not because I was seeking them out, but on the show who have shared stories of their experience in a variety of high control religious groups and then their life today, whatever it might be. You know, some of them are still in it, some of them have made choices, but I had never heard anybody tell a story of a situation where they had actually admonished people to not go. That's a whole other level, not go to
Mhm.
college. I did an interview many months ago of a woman who she did not know that dinosaurs were real. And so the conversation we discussed is that as an adult, she discovered they were real and the just crisis of reality.
Yep.
She was like, how could I not know? How could I not
I
know
went
this?
in junior college, my first geology class, when I learned how old the Earth really was. I was like, wait, say that again?
Right. Are you
Yeah.
sure? Because this conflicts with information I've been given by other
It
sources.
was such an aha moment. I mean, I'd already left the religion by then. I escaped the cult at 20 years old, put myself through college. It took 8 years, but I did it. But it was one of those like, wait a minute, the earth is how, like, I've been lied to about that too. It was like, but we were told dinosaurs weren't real. We were
Yeah.
told that all of this fossil information was fake and made up. Fake news, fake news. Um,
And to your
and
defense, they no longer roam. If somebody told me, you know, it is a leap of faith. Like the fact that there would
yeah,
be giant reptiles walking around on the planet.
yeah,
There's, you know, they're not here now. So,
yeah.
you know, there's. Can you imagine if you walked down the street and a dinosaur rounded the corner? And I do live in South Florida, where we still coexist with alligators, and
Alligators.
so those. It's
I grew up with alligators too. I grew up in Florida.
yep,
Yes. I had
yep,
an alligator chase my school bus. Once I'd gotten off it and
yes.
we I got to watch it. I wasn't very afraid of them.
It is definitely an adjustment. So I didn't grow up here, but you know, when you grow up around the alligators, you know, there's a Florida culture which is like, okay, the alligators are pretty well fed; they're going to leave us alone. Crocodiles we're much more serious about
Different thing.
because they tend to be a little crankier.
Yeah.
Um, all right, so you put yourself through college. So go into teaching. How did
Yes.
that happen? How did you decide that? How did you find your way to that profession?
I love this question so much because I really fought it for a long time. When I finally started going to school, I wanted to be in a profession that was not typical female, and nurse and teacher and secretary. Those were what women were allowed to do. And I'm like, I got out of something where I was being told what I'm allowed to do. So I want to do something else. And so I went into all kinds of stuff, telecom and all of that. And I was actually in a sales position for a wine company when 9/11 happened.
Okay.
And it was my first day in a new position. And in the weeks that followed 9/11, driving up and down the coast, passing San Onofre, which is a nuclear, facility where, there was like, is this going to be the next thing hit? It's right on the coast. It's literally on the beach, not far from where I live. And, there was that fear. And then going down to San Diego and tasting this moment I will never forget. I was tasting somebody on a German Cabernet, which is a beautiful white wine. And I'm he's finding things wrong with it. And I looked at him and I'm like, in my head, I didn't say it out loud. You are such a snob. This is a beautiful wine. There is nothing wrong with this. You are not curing cancer. The world is falling down around our ears, and you've got to find something wrong with this gorgeous wine. I can't be around these people anymore. And I went home and I really thought hard about what can I do that is going to make a difference in the world. And it's teaching, which I'd always been drawn to, always wanted to do, but fought it because it was typical female. And it was a great fit. And I did it for 20 years and I loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it.
How
Up
did you,
until I
what,
moved into administration. Moving into administration was a totally different thing.
so
But the
20
teaching, the
years you were
classroom, the kids,
teaching, what kind of,
yeah.
what curriculum, what subjects did you lean into teaching and what age did you like?
I was an elementary teacher. I had a
Okay.
K-8 credential, have K-8 credential, and I taught fourth, fifth, and sixth grade. I was at a school that just taught fourth, fifth, and sixth. And our school was a GATE magnet school, gifted and talented education. And so I got extra training and became a GATE teacher. And I spent about a decade as a GATE teacher. And it was quite a privilege. Those kids they keep you on your toes.
Yeah.
Like there is no being bored when these are the kids that you have. Tons of with very highly functioning brains comes lots of other challenges, right? Like often their emotional and their cognitive we call it asynchronous development. And so emotionally, they're often very, very young, younger than their peers. Cognitively, they are extraordinarily high, and that creates a lot of emotional challenges. ADHD is very high in that population. Just a lot of challenges and a lot of interesting ways of seeing the world. So it was a fascinating job as a teacher because I really had to think about things differently and I really had to challenge the kids and I really had to be a good emotional support system for them. And it ended up being a gift because my oldest son, who is now 20, he's on the autism spectrum, ADHD, and highly intelligent. Like he's literally a rocket scientist. He's studying astro. So it allowed me to be a better mother to him, having worked with these kids and seen all of the incredible ways different brains work.
That is amazing. All right, I'm going to go back to the beginning of your journey as a
Okay.
teacher just because I'm curious about this. So you went to school. Did you have to go back when you left the sales job and went into teaching? Did you have to do some certificate work or more
Oh,
education? Did you
absolutely.
have to plan it out?
Yeah.
So what did it take to get, so did you have you had a conversation with yourself? Many of us, there's a very age, there are conversations that happen with people, shared worldwide events. Many people my age, they have that moment. It's like, where were you on 9/11? Where were you in the Challenger explosion? I was homesick on the Challenger explosion.
I was in
The
sixth grade at school
Yeah, most
watching
people,
it.
right? Most people were at school. I was not because I was homesick. So like I'm the oddball there. But so you're having, with 9/11, it was a reflective time. Like first of all, it was disruptive. Secondly, it touched so many of us. And third, it really put things in perspective the way things are. It's like, all right, things can change at any time. And our kids have different versions of that they live through in their own ages. But so you have this like awareness in your life that you want to do something that matters. You realize it's teaching. What did you have to do to make that happen and how long did it take?
Well, I was the primary breadwinner. My husband at the time we're now divorced. But my husband at the time just worked part-time, and I had the more high-paying job. So it took a conversation between us. Honestly, it got to the point where we were paying mortgage on the credit card.
Okay.
Um, and I had to go back to school. I was lucky enough to get into the last cohort for a teaching internship. So that
Okay.
meant I did, because as a teacher, you have extra schooling to get your credential, and then you also have to do student teaching. And student teaching it's basically free work, like you're in a classroom teaching alongside another teacher and learning from them. And so I got involved in a internship program from UC Irvine. And I was really, 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 really lucky in that I got paid to do basically student teaching, but I had my own classroom,
Hmm.
right? So, and it was a really accelerated program as far as the learning part, the classroom learning part, because I did my learning alongside a teacher as part of what would normally be just bookwork learning, just in the college classroom. So a lot of real world experience, and then I got paid for my first year of teaching. It didn't count toward retirement, but it counted. I got paid.
Pretty
So
good.
that allowed me to go back to school and still be, the primary breadwinner of the family because it was just a year without my salary. And then after that, of course, going from a sales position to a teaching position, my salary dropped by half.
Sure.
So that was a whole nother thing. But yeah, that was what was involved in that. And I continued to work in just a fun retail job while I was going to school to be a teacher.
Very interesting. All right. So I love that story. And I want to say thank you for sharing what the path was. One of the things I'll come back to a couple of times in this conversation is the connecting the dots between where you started and where you are today. So at some point, you're applying for a teaching job that you expressed on the form you filled out for me, which thank you very much, that you felt you were very qualified for it, but you
Mhm.
didn't get it. And
Yeah.
you shared that you requested a debrief with your supervisor to discuss this. So I just want to share with everybody, you and everybody who's watching and listening, that I am today years old when I learned that you could do this as part of a job application process.
Really?
Yes, I did not. I had never thought about the fact that I would say, "Oh, will you debrief me on why I wasn't selected for this?" So now everybody's learning. Everybody's learning today. All right, so you're
I do
super.
highly recommend the debrief. It's really, really
Yeah.
enlightening.
Yes, no,
Yeah.
I think it makes beautiful sense. Beautiful sense.
Mhm.
All right. So the supervisor shares with you that you are too passionate.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to give you a chance to talk about that. And I want to start with this question. I mean, do you agree that you were passionate about this and some other things that you were doing?
Yes, absolutely. So the position I had gotten my master's in administration, I'd moved up into the district office, so I was out of the classroom. And my big goal was to be what's called the GATE supervisor. So supervising the gifted and talented education program. That's what I wanted. That's why I got my admin credential. That was what I studied. That's what I worked toward. And I'm not going to give you the whole long, ugly story, but there are so many layers to this that finally the position opened up and I applied for it. And this was like the third time applying, but the others, I'm not going to give you the story on it, but it was not real applying. Anyway, I applied. I have the master's degree. I have the experience. I had supported the last supervisor who was unqualified and didn't know what she was doing and needed extra help. And so they tapped me to help her. And I was head of a team that helped her, all of this stuff, right? And I didn't get the job. Somebody else got it who, again, no experience. Lovely person. Love her as a human, the person who ended up getting it. Great person. No problem with her. But again, never taught at a gate school, never even supported a gate school as an admin, never did anything with the gifted and talented program, and she became supervisor. And again, somebody in there that didn't know what they were doing, didn't understand the program, didn't understand the kids. And that's where I went to my boss and I'm like, I'm so confused because the reason I got my master's was for this. I was tapped for it. I was asked to get my master's to go in this direction. I was very interested in it. And her answer to me was, well, Tiphany, you're just too passionate. And I had to repeat that. And I asked her to explain further. And if she had said, you need more experience, you need more training, try again next year, blah, 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 like those are all things I could work with. But what she told me was that who I am and what I care about, I are too much for them. Basically, they're looking for a yes person. They did not really value the gifted and talented program over the years. They'd been dismantling it. And my interest was in creating a more equitable program. Our the kids that are identified as GATE do not match the demographics of our district.
Okay, so
Our
this is
district
in the
was
modern definition of equity where we're
yes,
looking at what the community looks like and does it
exactly.
match and are we giving opportunities on a merit-based situation, really leaning into that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just as an example, the district was more than 80% Hispanic, and our gifted and talented population was run around 10, 15.
Mm,
Like
right, right, right.
that's massive disparity there. And I can guarantee we have a lot more gifted Hispanic students. They're just not being identified because they don't look the way white gate students or Asian gate students look, right? So I was passionate about that. I'm like, we need this needs to look more equitable.
Yeah.
We're not identifying the right kids. And so, yes, I wanted to bring change. And they didn't want that.
So let's talk about passion a little bit because without a doubt, people in the audience are going to resonate with a variety of parts of this. So many people have the lived experience of having a job with an organization that does not feel like it's in support of their advancement or
Yeah.
really, honoring and valuing what is special about them. And I think that a lot of people have at a variety of times in their life the idea that passion for what you're doing, especially when you're working in places where is a level of caregiving or
Mhm.
nurturing involved. Passion feels like it's something that aligns with a positive job description. She's
Right?
passionate about working with kids. So do you think of passion as being a good thing, most of the
Oh,
time?
oh yeah. And
Yeah.
that was when she said that, that was such an aha moment for me because I'm like, you know what? This is something I value in myself. And having been raised in that super culty, patriarchal religion, I was admonished many times, punished, admonished for my passion and my desire to learn and my excitement for what I was learning. And, it's just you like literally the amount of times in my life I've been told that I'm too much, too passionate, too whatever is so much. And so that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back,
Sure.
of like, okay, I've been hearing these messages my whole life. I am, in my 40s now. I was about 45 then. And I'm like, you know, I'm tired of people telling me I'm too passionate. I'm really tired of that. This is something I really like about myself. This is something I'd like to lean into more. I am so sick and tired of feeling like I have to hide who I am to show up in a world that, you know, where I'm showing up in the way they say I should show up. It's exhausting and I'm done with it. I'm done with it.
So, just quick, not like the focus of the conversation overall, but have you ever had an experience where you realize that you are too passionate for something? I actually have. I was fired for a volunteer thing where the lady was like, "You are too invested," and she was totally right. I wanted to like rescue instead of be a part of the. I was like, I'll just take all of these things with me, just give everything to me. And she was like, "You're gonna burn yourself out," and I was like,
Yeah.
I am, so like, have you ever had a thing where you've realized you're like, no, maybe I need to take a step back here. I'm a little too
Well,
passionate for this, for myself, not
that
for
was
the
the
other.
moment.
Yeah.
I created an exit plan for myself. because I realized I am too passionate. Like who they want is not who I am. And I have two choices. I will either completely shift myself, change who I am, hide my light, and stay the course and be miserable, not be
Yeah.
me, or I can leave.
And
And it
yeah,
broke my heart because this was a career I worked so hard for. But I did decide to leave because I was like, I just can't, there's not a place for me here anymore. I
yeah.
can't, I can't.
So you're
Like
actually
it just,
both sides of the passion thing. It's like you looked at it and you were like, yes, I am passionate. I love that about myself. And you were like, and because I am so passionate, this is actually not the best fit for me right now. Is
right.
because I am passionate and I will not be able to do what I feel really needs to be done. That means that
Yes.
they are right. Like I am not the best person.
Yeah.
All right.
We're
So
not all good fits for, there are some people that are great fits for that. And the lovely, incredible, wonderful person who got that position is a great fit for it because she is very sweet and very kind and has a good heart, but also isn't gonna try to make change, right?
yes,
She's gonna do what she's told. And wait, sometimes you need people like that in the world because you just need to get things done, right?
right.
And I'm not the right person for that because I would question everything. And that's not who they need and that's not who they want. And sometimes you just have to say, okay, I'm not in the right place.
All
Not in the right. It
right.
doesn't mean I'm wrong. It means I'm not in the right place.
I think that's really interesting. So you were 45 because there is that shift in many women's life where somewhere between like 45 and 55, we're just like,
Mhm.
yeah, enough of this. I'll be over
Yeah.
there if you need me. The all right. So after this meeting, after this self searching, you decide to make a change. You go home and you say, I'm going to start a podcast. Um,
Mhm.
I wonder, like, I'm curious whether or not it was like all in one decision, all in one day, or if it was like over a little bit of time. I am curious about if it's like you were like, all right, screw you, I'm out of here. Podcast starts tomorrow, or if there was some time. And then also tell us a little bit about that podcast and what it was about.
Okay. First, I'm just going to put a caveat. A podcast is not a great way to make money.
Right.
Like, don't quit your job and think I'm going to become a millionaire making a podcast. So that's not what the podcast doesn't have that. That the podcast part of the story is not quit your job, start a podcast, you'll be
Right.
fine.
This is not an ad for for that. Yes.
No,
Yeah.
no. Like go underwater basket weave and sell it on Etsy and you'll make more money. But um, what what I did, like teachers have contracts,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I had to finish my contractual year. So in that contractual year, I still had several months. And one of the things I would do at lunchtime, because I worked at the district office, not in a classroom at that time, is I would go for walks during lunchtime, a good like 40-minute walk, and listen to podcasts. Like I had just discovered podcasts. And um, I just realized, I'm like, wow, these people are just saying what's important to them, talking about what's important to them. Is this something I could do? Like I had felt this great need to just talk about stuff and say stuff. And so I did. I started a podcast and I was about 5 years out from a divorce. And so my podcast just had to do with divorce.
Okay.
It's called Love and Life After Divorce. And I wanted to talk about kind of the lessons learned. And because of the religion I was raised in, divorce carries so much shame. And so the goal of my podcast was like releasing the shame and talking about, the strength and the power and that there is life after divorce and it can be great, blah, blah, blah. And just the act of learning something new, going out there and starting it, talking about something, my life changed completely in the first couple months of starting that podcast. And it had absolutely nothing to do with downloads or money or anything. It changed my confidence. It changed my belief. It changed even the people I was hanging out with and talking to. My You can only reach for the fruit you can see, right?
That's
And
right.
so, like, I started seeing other possibilities, other doors started magically opening. And in that way, the podcast changed my life. Nothing to do with the downloads, nothing to do with the money, but it was I was taking a step for myself and just the world just opened up in front of me because of that
I
and
love
changed it.
that. All right. So I think that project, so like you mentioned, the podcast is not the end of this story. You do something completely different. I don't know. We're going to talk next about how that came to be. But I want to just touch base. I said I was going to bring this up a little while ago. I think that when a lot of us are 15 or 18 or 22, we have this idea that that Psych 101 class that we take is setting our path, and that means that we're going to do the only job we've ever seen that relates to that intro level class forever and ever, and there's never a chance to change our mind. And I remember feeling like that myself at that age, but I also will say that, and for some people it's true, right? For some people, you get a degree, you do the job, that's all you ever do. But I'm continually surprised as an adult how many people do not live that path. And so one of the goals of the show is to try and cross those age group lines, right? So for any 20 somethings out there who hear this, or 40 or 50, anybody who's trying to do a reinvention, right? Let's, people who are thinking to themselves, I can't change my path because I've been going in this direction for 5 minutes or 50 years. Talk to us a little bit about how, more about this connecting the dots, from teacher to a person with a podcast. And today you are the co-owner of a media company. So walk me through how that ended up happening.
Well, I think the big thing is um, allowing yourself, and I allowed myself to see possibility because I was in that. Well, I worked hard for this degree. I have all the student loans to
Right.
show. I'm still paying those damn student loans. Um, uh, it's that loss. What is that? There's a
Oh, the
theory about
lost sunk cost.
sunk cost theory. Yes, that like, okay, I've put so much time into this. How could I quit now? It was the same with my marriage. I was married for 20 years. It's
Yeah.
like, how can I quit? But you just get to a point where it's like, well, it hasn't gotten better in this amount of time. So will it?
Right.
Or will it just get worse? So sunk cost theory, you have to let that go and you just have to think about, okay, what do I actually want my life to look like? What is really important to me? What can I let go of? Because when you're changing careers, you're gonna have to let go of a lot of things. Friends, like your social circle, a lot of times you'll lose because they're work friends. Possibly your health insurance. That's been a huge thing for me is navigating health insurance outside. As a teacher, I had great health insurance. Um, steady income. When you own your own business, you're not gonna have a guaranteed paycheck. You gotta like really work hard for that paycheck in a completely different way. So it's being okay with risk, with knowing that you're going to be giving up a lot while you gain something different. And so for me, the the shift, there was a certain grieving of a career I absolutely loved. I loved being a teacher. I was one of those people that woke up every day feeling so lucky for the job I had and loving the students I got to teach. Understanding that I felt the shift when I moved into the district office, and I felt like part of me was slowly dying, and realizing that I couldn't live like that anymore. And really having to take the time and do the work of what do I want my life to look like? What really truly is actually important? And I'm with a wonderful man now, and we had these conversations together a lot. We still have these conversations. He's my business partner now. And it's not easy. I'm not going to throw roses at people and just be like, oh, it's easy. Everybody, change what you're doing, change your career right now. But I think that if we start life knowing that life is like a box of chocolates, no, that you're going to be going on a journey and that you need to know that every step you take is teaching you something for the next step. And being okay with this journey being rocky and bumpy and loopy and it's not a straight path. I just think sometimes we're told it's a straight path. You get your degree, you do this, yeah, especially when you're in a career that people expect you to retire from, and get your pension and get your whatever. Um, and you look at it as a straight path of, okay, I'm going to be doing this for 30, 40 years and this is what I'm doing. But it's life isn't like that and it doesn't have to be like that. Some people want that straight path. They
Yeah.
want that guaranteed. They want that knowing what's going to happen and that's fine. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But for some of us, that feels suffocating. It feels like, oh my God, knowing how life is going to unfold for me, like I can't handle it. And so being okay, one, with risk, and two, with every moment you're in, gleaning what information can I take from this that I can apply really anywhere, anytime. And knowing that, okay, the next step I take is going to be very, very, very unknown, but I have learned so much that I will be able to apply in this new situation that I'll be able to figure it out. And it may look very different than I thought. And it may be way harder than I'm prepared for, but I can figure it out. That's what's helped me.
Yeah, no, I think that that's very helpful. And I think that it's easier to talk about not being able to see the next step or the fruit you can reach for until you reach for it. I think it's easier to talk about that in the past tense because in the
Mhm.
moment it can feel very destabilizing, no matter if you do it all the time. Like obviously you can get more used to it, but it is always unnerving. That's the other way people say is that you can't see the net until you jump. And some people are very brave like that. I have a really high risk tolerance, but I'm also like, if I'm on the cliff, I like peek over and I'm like, how far is it? Like, can I
Right.
see somebody else jump to make sure that I know what I'm doing? There's like a lot of different ways to do that. So the podcast was not the end of the journey, but when you got in there, that's where things started to open up that then led
Yeah.
you into the media company
Yeah.
gig. All right, very
Yes.
good. And I think you say you describe it as co-owner of a media company is what we say,
Mhm.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
So do you still miss teaching every once in a while?
Oh my God. I've lately been having dreams about being in the classroom.
Really?
Like almost every night dreams about that. So yeah, I miss it. It's not something where I'm like I feel called to ever go back to. It's just not my path. I'm one of those people like once I make a move, like it's done. I've made that decision. I'm not going backwards. This is the decision, and we just go forward. So, yes, I loved those years, loved them. And I still sometimes dream about them. But no, it's not a life that I could go back to now. I kind of know too much now about entrepreneurship and life. And I don't know. I know too much like to go backwards.
Two other
Absolutely.
options. There you go. All right. So there's a lot of doom and gloom right now in the space of media,
Mhm.
podcasting, social media has its own special category of doom and gloom. Hollywood, film, all of those things. But you are in the media business. What would you say if you have one? Maybe this is in every interview I throw in one question that may or may not be a good question. And here it is. What do you think is the biggest opportunity right now for women who are or who want to be a part of what I call independent media?
Oh my gosh. We need independent media now more than ever, right? Like we need voices out there. We need authenticity. I think there is the more AI and just misinformation is out there when people are like, "Can I trust this? I don't know." You're every video now you're looking at it like, "Is that AI? Did that actually happen?" Like it's so frustrating. So I think there is a hunger and a desire, and I think it's just going to ramp up for really authentic knowledge building. Learning from people that you trust, um, conversations that feel authentic and don't feel scripted, don't feel overwrought, good balanced information, good research. And we just have to, the tighter legacy media gets squeezed and becomes less and less trustworthy.
Yeah.
We need other. avenues. And I think one of the really beautiful things about podcasting and YouTube and just all of these ways where gatekeepers no longer are stopping people, even music, like people
Yep.
can create music and get it out there. There's not those huge gatekeepers anymore saying what voices can get out there. So I would really say to women now, like there is more than ever a need for authenticity and realism and talking about the things that really, really, really matter because it's being silenced in mainstream media so much.
Yeah, I think that we agree on a lot of that, and it's a really nuanced conversation because media is a big industry and the technology is a huge part. I do look at everything and wonder, like, is it real? And it is sometimes hard to tell. I fell hook, line, and sinker for the grandma who was feeding the bear, that the bear was her friend. And when somebody was like, "That's not real," I was like so shattered. I was like, "Of course it's not real. That's not a thing that could happen." But I wanted it to be real. I loved the idea of her having like a pet bear. And what's so interesting about that is that had I known that it was fiction, I would have loved it anyway, because
Yeah.
I do love fiction, right? When we know that
Uh-huh.
something is entertainment, I'm pretty sure Frozen's not a true story, doesn't make it not cute, right?
Right, right.
So this is going to be old by the time this airs, but I found there was a quote today in something I read from Jim Acosta, who used to be with CNN, which is legacy media that we would say, and he left CNN and he said, "I'm loving the freedom of independent media, especially liberating when you're coloring outside the lines of corporate media." So there's all these like words that are coming together: legacy media, corporate media, the gatekeepers. It is a really strange time because they are gone, right? Like if you and I wanted to take $5 million that we don't have and make a feature film, we could put it out into
Yeah.
distribution on our own. Like there's nothing actually in our way other than the lack of the $5 million and a good movie idea. But it's possible, right? It's
Yeah.
possible. And
Yeah.
20 years ago, it wasn't. You would have had to get a deal with a studio and get a deal with an agent and all of the things all the way. So I think that's really exciting. Okay, so in a minute, we're going to wrap this up with my final questions. I could talk to you all day. I say that every single interview. I really, really do. I do want to give you a chance to tell the folks who are watching and listening, what you do, and you can give your website a shout out for where you want people to find you.
All right. What I do is it's fantastic because it's kind of constantly changing. We have to really change with the times. But with our audio and video production company, we um, we work with video game companies. So we work on the audio for major video game Starfall and Fallout and all of that kind of stuff. But also the part I really love is I get to work with companies on creating shows for them that like show their brand, but do it through authentic conversations and telling human stories. So I'm working with a large brand right now, Z Gallery. I don't know
Yeah,
if you're
furniture.
familiar with them.
Yep.
Yeah. So they went through bankruptcy. They got bought by a different company, and this different company is really trying to bring the human piece back. And I got to work with them on ideating the show, like from zero, starting at zero, to creating the show. They asked me to host the show. We filmed the show. We're produced like the post production of the show. And now they love what we did so much. They're asking us to create the ads. I've never created an ad before, but I'm like, okay, I'll learn how to do that. I'll learn how to do that. I'll create some ads. And so now we're having an advertising company. So it's like I get to, as an entrepreneur, I get to say, well, yeah, let's do it. Let's go. Let's try it. And so what I'm doing is constantly changing. We're also building a studio, which you want to talk about being in the middle of the unknown and living in the scary right now. That is it. Having overhead, paying rent, trying to work to keep the business going while also building something and completely bootstrapping the building. Like it is
It is the reason you're
insane.
having dreams about teaching, probably.
Probably. It's absolutely insane. But it's also like I don't want any other life. It's
Yeah.
probably the hardest stuff I've ever gone through, but I feel so lucky that this is my life and that I get to do that. I get to make these decisions. And if I fail, which there's a good possibility we will, I got to fail. Like it
Yeah.
was me. Like I got to make that choice and I got to learn from it. So I don't know. It's great.
That is very exciting. I have platters. So there used to be a Z Gallery by me in Miami, in South Miami, for anybody who's regionally located. And so I still have platters like that I picked up there that are in my kitchen. It's been closed for years though. I didn't know when you said it. I thought that maybe they just closed the location by me, but it makes sense. They went through a restructuring. I'm excited to see what you created for them, and back to Z Gallery. All right, that is fantastic. All right, Tiphany, are you ready to wrap this up with my final questions? Dum,
I
dum,
love the
dum.
final questions. Let's go.
All right, this one is multiple choice. Which of the following generations descriptions do you match? Silent generation, boomer generation, Gen X, millennial, or Gen Z?
I'm an Xer baby.
Me
Gen X
too.
all the way.
Me too. I would have guessed that, although sometimes people fool me with their elder millennial status. But yeah, all right, Gen X all
Yeah,
the
no,
way.
Gen X all the way.
All right, very good. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you for a recommendation. This is a podcast. You and I are recording a podcast. You have a podcast. Share with, and we're always looking for what is the next thing that we will enjoy, right? Now we all work from home. We have different ways of socializing. Share with us a book, a podcast, a TV show, a film, a movie, something that you've recently enjoyed that you think that people in the audience might enjoy.
Oh my God. Can I share two?
Of course.
Okay, okay. So it is Women's History Month.
It is. Yes, this will air in the summer,
Um,
but we're recording this in March. Yeah.
there is a book that is so unusual and so unique and so fabulous that I just loved so much. It's called When Women Were Dragons,
Okay.
fiction. And it's about women turning into dragons. And they turn into dragons basically it's a cultural phenomenon, like an evolutionary thing, a response to misogyny, right? Like
Okay.
we're just done. We're just done. And to me, it's a treatise on perimenopause, menopause, right? Like I'm done. This isn't working for me, so I'm going to completely change. It is a fabulous book. Completely, I picked it up because the cover was beautiful. I had no idea what it was going to be about. Um, and it completely blew my mind, was totally different than I ever thought. And such a good women's history, just like women power book. And it will really make you think. And it's odd too. And I love odd things. So, anyway, great book, When Women Were Dragons. And then I'm really into my podcasts right now are either political or medical related because I'm going through a lot of medical stuff. So I'll stick with the politics because that just feels really relevant right now. I got really into Pod Save America
Oh
and
yeah.
Runaway Country. I feel like I'm getting good information about current events and Pod Save the World. Good information about current events that I can trust.
Yeah.
So.
No, those are all wonderful suggestions, and I'll put links to all of those things. I love the idea of being able to turn into a dragon. I
Right.
read some sci-fi fantasy something or something other that I did not stick with me enough that I even remember the name, but all of the magical characters were like people who had powers that they could switch into things, right? Not all of them were dragons, but different things. But the idea was that some of them could just like run along and then poof, they were dragons. And it's just like, okay.
Right.
Right. First of all, but also how cool would that be? Because I don't know, dragons, dragons are a cool concept. It would be,
Yeah.
it's like, I'm just going to turn into this dragon. I can fly over the world and I can roast you with my like fiery breath if I need to, right? Like, it's like, they're
Yes.
armored, they're huge, they're strong, they've got the claws and they can burn
Yeah.
you with the flame. Yeah. A lot of appeal to that one. Absolutely. Okay. So last one, this one is the random one. How do you feel about the trend of cold plunges? Love it, hate it, or simply can't be bothered to even think about it much at all?
I hate being cold. I've done it. I've done the cold plunges. I've done like the cryotherapy. Um, I've done it. One of my favorite cold plunge experiences, actually, we were in Germany and we were in a river coming out from the Alps.
Okay.
southern Germany. And my son was like, please, mom, please, mom, please, mom, go, let's go play in the river. Let's go play in the river. And I'm like, you do realize it's coming from the ice from the mountains, right? And he's like, let's go, let's go. And then there were these little kids, German kids, that took off their clothes and just ran into the river and were jumping and playing. So I'm like, okay, let's do it. Oh my God, that water was so cold. But it was a really fun experience
Yeah.
of like being in Germany and doing it with my kids. But no, it's not. I am not going to seek out.
You're not gonna seek it out. Yeah. No, that's no, I agree
I have
that
some health issues that makes it super uncomfortable, super almost even dangerous. But
so then it's
yeah,
definitely not something you're gonna
yeah,
do. But yeah,
yeah.
I had a similar experience with the water years and years ago in Maine, where like everybody was just frolicking in the water, and I went like up to my knees, and I was like, are you guys in this water? Like, do you
It's
feel
miserable.
like this is 50, it was 50 degrees, so it was like cold enough that it like you felt it, it like made you
Yeah,
tingle, and I was
yeah.
like, and they're just splashing around, and I was like, wow, that's brisk. So
You
very,
know what I
very,
love though? I love that that says that we are all so freaking different. For some
yes.
of us, cold plunging is like, I feel invigorated. It's something I love. It's good for my health. And for some of us, it's like, oh, hell no.
Right.
That is absolute misery. Put me in a scalding shower where my skin burns off and I am so happy. Like my partner, he's like, are you trying to burn my skin off? And I'm like, oh, this is fine. I don't understand. This is great.
I think that
So
is, yeah, that
we're
is
all just
both
so
the,
different.
yeah, that is the thing. And it's so easy to think that everybody else is going through the same experience we are, but that really is the thing. It's like,
We're
just
not.
because something is great for you doesn't mean that
Mhm.
it's the answer for other people. It's so true in so many things. And then there are the rare things where it's like, no, no, that's a bad idea for pretty much everyone.
Like smoking.
Right.
I don't know
Right.
any one person that that's actually good for, but you
No,
know.
100%, right? And it's like, and even with that, right? Like there's some, well, I don't have any information about smoking, but it's like we are all different. So it's like, fruit is generally healthy, but then some people are allergic to it. So it's like
Mhm.
not healthy for them. And it just goes back to it's like, it's like we just don't know. We just don't know. And so that anytime somebody's like, this is the solution. I'm like, it might be, but the one I was thinking of is like, drinking, cleaning products. Like, so
Oh
like, if you
gosh.
were to drink
No.
Windex, that's probably not okay for anybody,
No, no.
right? Like that one,
Yeah.
or like, I can't think of anything else ridiculous that would be like that, but, like there's other
I
dangerous things.
do feel like anytime somebody comes to you with an absolute, this supplement will cure your, I have a chronic illness, and so I get
Hmm.
this stuff all the time. This supplement will cure everything. This energy healing treatment will cure everything. Everything is related to your gut biome and just heal that and you'll be better. So whenever absolutes are spoken, it's like, you know what? That is so, humans are so nuanced. We are so complicated. People who study the human body for their whole lives do not have the answers. And for many of us, they don't know what's going on with us.
Oh my
So
God. So true.
no, don't speak in absolutes to me. That's
I'm
a
the
pet
same.
peeve of mine, my dear.
Right. No, I absolutely agree with like, and the other one I was thinking of is Tide
You
Pods. Like
absolutely agree.
I do like so like I'm pretty sure that nobody should be eating Tide Pods. Like that would be if somebody's like,
Mm,
don't do this. I would be like, I agree.
right,
Right.
right. Yeah,
Laundry
yeah.
detergent, it should not go in my body. The other thing, it's like believe people when they tell you about their experience. And if it doesn't make sense to you, there's always a chance that you just don't understand it. Because um, for one person, something is a great idea, and for other people, it's going to make them really sick. And it doesn't mean that either one of the things is either more true, right? It's like, and it's just like we can be so intolerant. But, I knew somebody years ago who had Crohn's disease and was in a constant state of inflammation. She had a very, very limited amount of things that her body would tolerate. And, I would watch people try and, offer her advice and just think to myself, just hush, she's on her, just don't try, just stand with her.
Yeah.
Like,
If if you are talking to somebody with some sort of health condition that they've been dealing with for a while, and you start with, have you tried? Or you should, you know you're about to say something that's not helpful at all.
right.
If you start with, how can I help? Or I'm sorry, or how are you feeling? Or what are you feeling? Those are fine. but
Yeah.
you should, and have you tried, and that kind of stuff. It's not going to be
Or I
helpful.
read
But
this
that's a
latest blog
tangent that I could
post.
talk about forever.
I read an article on Substack about, step to the right, to
Yeah.
the, you were there.
Yeah. I've done a series of videos on Instagram, little skits. I try to have a good sense of humor about it, but helpful phrases that actually hurt.
Yeah.
And, it's people that love you, that want to do the right thing. But man, sometimes what they say, it's like, you are diminishing my experience right now. You're
Right. And
diminishing my experience. And it hurts.
I had that conversation. I've had that conversation a couple of times with people about grief when people come to
Mhm.
try and jump in with grief. And so people will say things with the intention of being supportive and helpful and 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 wonderful
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
coming with the best of intentions. But the impact in that moment can be, not always, not a guarantee. Humans are not like computers where it's 1 + 1, plug this in and this always happens. But every once in a while it doesn't hit right at all. And instead of being helpful, it's like just salt in the wound. So I appreciate that perspective because it's one of those things that it's like a conversation we kind of have to have over and over again. Because even if you
Oh, yeah.
know it, you can step into you can accidentally put yourself in that conversation. Like even if you're very familiar with it, I would be a liar if I didn't say that every once in a while I was like, well,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Especially if something's worked for you.
right, and then and just it can be
Well,
hard. You
I
can
cut gluten out of my diet and it's true. I cut gluten out of my diet and it's helped so much. But that's me. But sometimes I get on my gluten train.
No,
But
yeah, and years ago, so like I had to do an elimination diet under the instruction of a doctor for a while, which was one of the hardest things I've ever done, just because it's hard to maintain. It's
same.
like you're right,
Yeah.
it's like there's only a certain amount of rice and chicken that I want to eat in my lifetime, and then I was ready to move on, and I was not given that option. Um, and so, and people Whole 30 was a thing then, and people were like selling it as like this thing to do. And I was just like, if you don't have to do the elimination diet, like don't sell this as like a fun time. Right.
It's fun.
Like I was really hungry,
Yeah.
but that's just the way we are as people. All right, that's it. Tiphany Kane, thank you
Oh
so
my God.
much for being a wonderful
Thank you.
guest today.
Thank you. I could talk to you forever. So thank you for this great conversation. It's been really fun.
Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the show. Before I go, I want to encourage you to become a bigger part of the conversation. Please subscribe wherever you're listening or watching the show. That helps my stats. A request from the bottom of my indie creator heart is to please tell your friends about the show. That is the real way new people discover it. If you feel motivated, I would love it if you rated the show or wrote a review on whatever platform you are using. Please be sure to head over to imperfectadulting.com and sign up for the email community. I call this the Village. You'll get some free stuff right away, and you'll begin to get the weekly emails that I send. This includes the links for special offers from any guests on the show and cool stuff I put together for the community. There's a lot more going on than just this show, and the only way to find out is to get the emails. Plus, you're busy, you don't have time or desire to follow every single tidbit on social media, and you don't have to because I'm happy to send it to you. If you have a story you'd like to share with the audience, I have an open application for guests. Guess where you'll find it? That's right, on the website and in the emails. And that's a wrap for this episode. Until next time, remember that the journey is the destination. Ralph Waldo Emerson said that, not me. Well, until just now. I did just say it. But what I want you to hear today is that if your adulting journey isn't going the way you expected, that just may not mean you're lost. It may mean that you're just on your way. And now, the fine print. The Art of Imperfect Adulting podcast and streaming video show is a copyrighted work created and produced by Amy Stone and Amy Says So. The music was written and produced by Todd Thompson at Dharma Bomb Studios. All rights are reserved. Anything expressed on this show is offered as entertainment, and the views of the guests may not always represent the ideas and viewpoints of the host. That's me. Amy Stone does not intend to hold herself out to provide professional advice or recommendations of any kind. In the end, you and you alone need to make those kinds of decisions based on your personal and individual situation, needs, circumstances, and comfort level. Yeah, it's a little weird for me to talk about myself in the third person, but you get the idea. This is Amy Stone, signing off.